Turned out to be a wet afternoon for the first afternoon of May as we welcome the new month on this Thursday. Had the potential of a few strong storms with this activity out there, but it's beginning to wind down. However, the strong to severe storm threat remains in place for the day on Friday. Unfortunately, legitimate rain chances on tap for Derby Day, and that includes over in Louisville at Churchill Downs. And the upper level system responsible for that, that's going to keep things cool and unsettled all the way into at least early next week. Here's everything front and center. We've had a lot of heavy rain here in the Lexington area over the last hour or so. It is beginning to move out. We're drying out, but not the case Cynthiana, running over to Carlisle, Owensville, and Mount Sterling. The leading edge of this bowing out a little bit, so some very, very gusty winds across parts of Morgan County, coming up on West Liberty, over to Sandy Hook and Elliott County, and crossing eventually over into Carter County up into northeastern Kentucky. And this little cluster in between McKee and Annville, right there along US 421, as you stretch down toward Clay County, just to sail west of Manchester, but this kind of packing a punch because that area has not been worked over at all. We had the initial few little thunderstorms congeal into this big cluster or complex. Luckily, that kind of diminished the overall severe threat here. And once this is gone, yeah, we'll probably see some additional development, just isolated storms here and there. The severe thunderstorm watch, just a few counties left over. As the last of that clears, this will probably be dropped before the next hour and 15 minutes as we approach 7 o'clock. Downtown Mount Sterling, Montgomery County, it's wet and it is cooler. 63. Now taking you to Jackson County, same story. The rain really coming down with temperatures where it has rained into the low 60s, where it is not into the mid to even upper 70s. It's been a breezy day. Before that rain got going, we had gusts 30, 35 miles per hour. Dew points up a bit, nothing off the charts, but just plagued by a storm system with this frontal boundary set to move in, comparable to what we had the last couple days. In fact, this warm front over the mid-Atlantic, that was what was camped over our area a couple days ago. This front, it's going to do the exact same thing. Drop in here, it'll have some upper level support, and that's going to keep things wet as we go into Derby weekend. Notice by 11 o'clock or so, everything's gone. An isolated shower or storm overnight, starting out in the low 60s tomorrow morning. And then as the day wears on, we begin to crank the storms up again. Could see another cluster heading our way later in the day. And with that, we got a level 2 severe weather risk from Lexington, Louisville, off to the south and southwest. Level 1 elsewhere. Same drill. Damaging winds, some larger hail. That quick spin up can't be ruled out. Once that stuff clears tomorrow night, briefly drier, but then the issue becomes that frontal boundary that's going to be kind of hanging over the area along with that low, which will sit and spin. So that's going to keep the clouds, keep the moisture around, and cool us down. So kind of a damp and dreary day. It may not rain all day long, but we're definitely going to have the showers around. And you see this carries over into the day on Sunday and possibly Monday and Tuesday before this thing gets kicked out of here. The jet stream, again, is cut off, at least the upper low. It's cut off from the flow of the jet stream instead of being able to kick it eastward. It's going to take a few days for that to happen. And that's why we're going to look at persistent clouds and shower chances as we progress into the early part of next week, all the way through the upcoming weekend. So breezy, the storms become more isolated a little bit later on. 61 for the overnight low on Oaks Day, partly sunny. More storms possible, especially later on in the afternoon. 74 the high in the extended forecast here. Again, take the rain gear along if you're heading over to Churchill the next couple of days. Biggest difference will be temperatures on Derby Day with that upper low overhead. We're only talking low to mid 60s Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and that may actually be a little optimistic. So not ideal by any stretch. Hopefully we'll begin to dry it out by the mid part of next week with highs back in the low to mid 70s.